So what? What are we going to do?
Force the law, perhaps. I'm just guessing. Be nice, anyway.
Well, there was going to be some kind of law enforced at some point anyway.
I think a year and a few months is probably enough time.
I guess from my perspective, I'll say this. I understand where Larry's coming from, and I think I understand the whole year thing. However, I also think for a year he's been bounced around and told to go through all these different steps that would get him to where he needs to be. So, I mean, my suggestion would be, and I don't know what the appropriate time frame is that we give a drop-dead date and say, okay, you can operate until this time, don't buy any more inventory or what have you, or as part of that, then we can look at whether we want to redo the C2. But I mean, honestly, I think this guy, we've been back and forth, and so.
Well, I mean, we can do a little consensus call about whether or not we want to revisit zoning ordinances, which, you know, my guess is that there's some of that might go on during the comprehensive planning. However, I don't know that that's not going to be resolved until next summer. I don't know how happy the applicant's going to be if and I feel for the applicant's probably not going to be happy with pretty much anything that we can offer him at this point. But does anybody want to predate what we are doing as a community with the comprehensive plan to study changing the zoning ordinances regarding the sale of used cars?
I think it needs to be done anyway, but that's just my own personal feeling.
Steve, anyone else?
Do you think what needs to be done?
I think we need to reexamine our zoning
Do you
law.
think that we should do that separate before the comprehensive plan?
I think we should do that attendant with the comprehensive.
Okay, I agree with that.
I mean, that needs to be done regardless. I mean, because, you know, as we're looking through all of our different aspects of community development and planning, we need to take a look at all of our existing, you know, laws. You know, especially if we can tweak certain zoning in order to be able to encourage economic development, mixed-use properties and things like that. I don't know how necessarily our 1990s ordinances are stacking up compared to, you know, 2013 economic development concerns. So that has to happen anyway.
I can't imagine that wouldn't be part, and I'm sure Cheryl can, of the community development program.
Oh, sure.
And I would say that'd play a pretty key role in how we develop
Absolutely.
districts and other things.
Cheryl, you had a comment?
Yeah, that, just as a follow-up to what Councilman Freeman just said, that is a part of the work. The progression is the comp plan first, because the comp plan will set the policy document, and the zoning code is the implementation too. So we really need the comp plan work completed so that we can bring to you certain policy decisions, so we know what to put in the zoning ordinance. So it would be, we need to do the comp plan first before we do the zoning ordinance.
To Christie's point,
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And what we could do is, you know, I heard council talking about the code enforcement component, giving them some time. I mean, really, it's just a matter of when we would direct code enforcement to go out and say, you can no longer sell cars at this location, which is what Councilwoman Harrison was asking us about.
And that was my question, is when is the enforcement date? Do we give them a time that they have to move their cars, or?
Well, I think that's obviously, you know, that there's a certain amount of time that we can give them. They've got the opportunity to move inventory by then. And that's that. I think that part of the reason that this has been allowed to continue is because we didn't want to leave them with a lot full of inventory at any time. But now we're up against legal opinion that this is not something we're going to be able to take forward. Even though I think that it's something that helping Mr. Singh and Mr. Jones and with their problems has had a consensus of support. But think we are at a point where a reasonable exit date needs to be established and notice given.
Mike, I have a question for you. And I know the answer, and so do you, but it might enlighten the council to have you answer it publicly. Has this business owner received a letter from the city in the past to stop selling cars at that location?
Yes,
And about, when was that? Do you recall?
they received a letter long before I was here in
March of 2011, 12?
12,
Yeah.
yeah, March.
So they
April
received a-
2012,
Mhm.
and that was before a land use permit was issued. And then when we advised them, when I advised the business owner, Sing Food and Gas, that we would not renew the temporary land use permit, I followed that up with a letter just to be clear about what the, what they would be allowed to do. They were provided the option of applying for a rezone application, and at that time, we gave them 90 days, and that's not been a secret, and we have talked about that in this, I believe in this meeting, that we were allowing them to go on beyond that 90-day period while this was being resolved.
But in the April of 2011 letter, 2012, sorry, letter, it stated at that time that car sales within that zoning classification were not allowed. Is that right?
It did, that letter.
And it referenced that zoning.
That is correct. The letter that we found on record was not a signed copy. It was an unsigned electronic copy. So it leaves some question about what was actually sent.
However, the follow-up emails indicated that the cars vanished shortly thereafter the letter was supposedly sent. We have no way to determine. But for 6 months, no cars were sold there, roughly. Well, I guess 5 months. Is that right?
I can't recall if the email substantiates that, but.
Well, yeah, it does. It says
It probably
cars,
says that.
the cars were gone after the letter was sent, so.
I think what you're trying to say is we're finally getting around to doing what we should have done before.
I guess what I'm saying is, it's really, this has happened twice, and I think we're well within our rights to take action.
Okay. And Mr. Jones wasn't actually partnered with Mr. Singh until the fall of 2012, though, correct?
Doesn't matter, it's
That's
the
what we-
same property owner.
No, I understand,
I actually.
but
don't-
it's different partners,
Mr. Mayor, I actually don't know that.
yeah.
We were not introduced to Mr. Jones until,
Well, you weren't until March 2013.
So,
Understood.
I have one other question. We were, sorry, Ryan, to have to keep you any later, but you were talking about the ordinances that are violated by our electric utility board before the mayor silenced that discussion. I guess I'd kind of be interested in hearing now, knowing that he doesn't want to entertain any other information, access on that what those other ordinances were, or those other statutes were that we were violating. Do you happen to have that handy, or?
I do. Well, it might take a second.
Touche.
I guess I kind of wondered why you were heading that direction, but it became clear after that.
Actually,
So, Mr. Mayor, can I just get some clarification while the attorney is looking for that for Gardner Auto Sales, we're going back to the original letter where we told them within 90 days after a decision that they would need to cease operation? Is that what I'm hearing we need to be, or what are we telling? I just want to know what staff's doing as a follow-up.
Well, in my perspective, it has got juggled along because we promised to keep trying
Okay.
to find a solution. I think actually it's come to the conclusion that